Alyssa Jorgen on the line. Say hi, Alyssa.
Hey Tucker.
Hey,
Hey Chad.
Tucker. Yeah, she's been dying to make fun of this hat for a long time in public. Alyssa and I tomorrow are going to be presenting at the Get Global Conference, and the Grow to Market Get Global presents Grow to Market Conference, and this is something that Alyssa has been talking to Julian, the organizer over there, for a long time. Tell us a little bit about this conference and the conversations that you've had with Julian. What have they done in past years? All of that good stuff, Alyssa.
Yeah, so I heard about this conference on LinkedIn last year. Julian held a different Get Global event back in October, and that one was a bit more focused on the macroeconomic policies and things like that that affect anybody expanding into global markets. But then we got to talking, and he told me
So
that there would be
not just the regular localization crowd, then, right? I know that's the
exactly,
one thing
yeah,
that you've
this
said to
crowd
me.
was Yeah, this crowd was very non-localization. These were a lot of Washington policy wonks and New Yorker writers and things like that. But I got to talking to him, and he said, "Hey, we actually run a few different tracks, one of which is grow to market." And I think NIMSY would be a good match for that because it is more focused on how to adapt your strategy and content for other markets, what kind of related concerns should be on your in the forefront of your mind when you're expanding. So
Well, and
we're
that's what
excited.
we're going to be talking about, right? What are the concerns that people should have on the top of their minds when they're going into the market? And we actually have here uh, three concerns that we're going to be talking about. We want to talk about process optimization, technology optimization, and cultural considerations. And these are, I think I like to look at these in the terms of these are like lenses that you through which you look at the world. And sorry, I keep switching cameras here. I need to fix that. These are essentially lenses through which you look at the world. And if you're not looking at all through all of these lenses, then you're missing out. You're not seeing clearly. You're not seeing as clearly as you could be. Starting with process optimization. And we've worked with multiple clients here at NIMSY on process optimization. But if you don't mind, Alyssa, I can talk just a little bit about this before we get into the technology and cultural considerations. Um, the
Go for
process
it.
up. So the process optimization, like what we're concerned about in process optimization, is not just the technology. Not like are you using the right translation management software, all of that stuff. We're talking about people. We're talking about vendors. We're talking about KPIs. All of these type of things that go into a solid localization governance program. What is your communication strategy? What is your communication matrix? If you're running a large localization program, you might have lots of different stakeholders. How do you communicate them with them? What frequency do you communicate with them? All of those different types of stuff. And when we go in and look at programs, and this isn't just us. When anybody from the outside comes in and starts looking at your stuff, they're going to find some areas to improve, right? Like Alyssa, would you want someone to come over to your house and start seeing what areas could be tidied up? No, right?
No,
There's always something,
not,
right? There's always
yeah.
something. And that's why it helps for somebody else to come in. I don't want this to be a sales pitch for NIMSY, but we do that. Like we do help people come in, and it's one of my favorite parts of the job because when I actually have time to take part in these projects myself, because we get to learn a lot too, learn how other people do these things. I mean, closely related to technology optimization, though. Alyssa, talk to us a little bit about this because you've been involved in some projects that are really a hybrid process and technology automation project as a consultant. What do clients need to be looking out for? What questions do they need to ask themselves about technology?
Well, I'd say the most important one is looking at your product roadmaps. Are you going to be able to scale, um, with the number of markets that you have planned to expand into? We were recently working with a project integration manager at a big multinational tech company, and he started running into problems making the jump from 18 to 35 markets. You know,
18 to 35.
taking. Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah, yeah.
basically doubling the amount of work that they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is when people start taking a deeper look at how much manual input are all their processes requiring. Is it time to take a look at that TMS dinosaur that they've had for the past 15 years that was never built to manage software string localization? And they start to disentangle that web of patches that they built up around it. And at that point, it's really becomes essential and urgent, and they need somebody to come in not only to help with the discovery process, getting everybody's expectations down on paper and trying to meet 80% of them at least, but
Right?
also in managing the change, right? You have a lot of expectations from very different stakeholders that need to be managed. So we've done some projects that really tackle that aspect of going global.
Yeah, and in your opinion, like when people are talking about what is there's I find that there's often a disconnect between what people think they need and what they actually end up needing, and that's one of the interesting things about really diving in and taking a look at cleaning out the cobwebs. What would you say is the number one thing that people think they need when they're starting this out, or do they even think about it? Is it one of those things where maybe they don't even know what they need?
I mean, sometimes the question comes down to really basic human needs, right? Everybody wants to be good at their job. They want to get people off their back. If you have developers that are constantly coming to you and saying, look, why am I being tasked with all of these localization related bugs? This isn't my core competency. I'm not able to dedicate the time I need to my core projects. You're that integration manager who has to handle these conflicts. You don't want your developers to quit. So, I mean, it really can come down to this basic stuff that is
Appeasing
nonetheless
the developers.
essential, right? So,
Appeasing the developers, appeasing the dev team. Well, last but
right.
not least, and hey, this is going to be a short one today. Um, Cultural considerations. Let's talk about that. I know, I think you've been more involved in this recently than I have, but I think this is often the lens that we forget to look through when we're going global. It's part of the checklist that companies that it should be part of the checklist that companies have before they go into new markets, or if they're already in markets, just talk about like how are they doing in those existing markets. Like everyone knows that we need to translate our stuff. Every globalization director knows that stuff should be translated, right? They should have an idea about how to talk about that and how to tell a good story around that in a way that makes sense to their senior leadership. That's another. I'm sorry, that's another presentation I'm working on. Is how to talk to senior leadership, how to report localization metrics to senior leadership in a way that they actually care about, right? Um, so they care about technology. They care about process optimization. That's why I like to talk about these. I don't like to talk about quality. They don't care about quality. They care about optimization. Another thing that companies are really starting to care about are these cultural considerations, though. It's not enough just to be translated. It's not enough just to be localized. There are incredibly diverse cultures out there, and we need to be sensitive to those. What are some examples that you can think of, Alyssa? I know you and I are on that guilt call every week.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, I would take a step back and say not just being sensitive, but surprising and delighting, to use that
Surprising.
phrase that seems to come up a lot now. I don't know. I think it was trademarked by one company at one point, but yeah, it seems everywhere. So
It
yeah,
wasn't a book. It was somewhere, right? Like,
right,
but
right. Nobody,
it
yeah.
works. It works.
But what we're getting at is that there are both proactive and reactive elements here. That anybody who's concerned about using localization as a revenue enabler to drive growth in multiple markets should be looking at. So, when it comes to the proactive elements, what do you need to do to adapt your product, not just so that it's not offensive, right? Because nobody wants to play, let's take a video game as an example, that's just boring in the conversation. I read Marina Ilari at Terra Translations
Oh
just
yeah,
published
Marina.
about this in Multilingual, the idea that you have international LATAM Spanish, right? But if you're trying to really resonate with
Right.
Argentinians in your game, none of uh, those little sayings and things that are really going to give the characters color are going to be there. And so that would be an example of a proactive cultural adaptation that you can make to really delight users in a country. And then, Tucker, should I throw it back to you maybe for the reactive component?
Oh, reactive. Ugh. Yeah, reactive you want to avoid.
Yeah.
What's that, Alyssa?
The avoiding the PR and legal disasters, basically.
Yeah, reactive you want to avoid. And reactive historically has, I mean, to put it simply, companies care about how to not piss off China.
Hmm.
Right, and I probably just pissed off China by just saying that. No, but that's essentially it. Like, how do I do business in China? Because it's a huge market and there's a lot of money to be made there, but it is very, very different culturally from quote unquote the West, right? And so, when talking about performing or conducting like geocultural type research, reviews of your content, whatever. Historically, this has been managed as a reactive measure. Microsoft, of course, has famously developed the Polycheck tool, which was developed to scan all of their code. Actually, not even their content. I think it was developed to scan their code for offensive language because developers would sneak in offensive language in other countries. I don't know, right? But nowadays, it's like every handoff that goes through Microsoft goes through this Polycheck tool, and it checks for, you know, your Arabic translation. If you're talking about alcoholic beverages, it's going to flag that, right? Um, but we're still talking proactive here because they're doing this before there's a problem. It just goes to show you how much of a pain in the ass it actually is to have that proactive or to have to be in a situation where you have to have a reactive approach because and that's why people take the proactive approach. Wow, I am not making any sense right now, am I? I do apologize for that. Hey, do your stuff right the first time. Don't piss off your local markets. It's hard. It's impossible to make a second first impression. So if you're going into a market and you want to resonate with them, make sure you do your homework. Make sure that you understand the geocultural considerations, not just the ones that are going to land you in jail in China, because that can happen. You
Hmm.
can go to jail if you get it wrong, and you got offices in China. That can happen, right? But that's not what's interesting to me because people are already thinking about those. What's interesting to me are is the increased scrutiny we as a society are placing on culture and cultural considerations and making sure to provide the same level of access to people of all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, no matter where you're from, no matter what language you speak. That is interesting to me, and that's why we're going to talk about it tomorrow when we go to the Grow to Market conference because it's something that we all need to know. So, Alyssa, anything that we're
Oh,
leaving out here?
yeah, just logistics. So it's tomorrow, Thursday, April 8th. We're presenting personally at 3 p.m. EST, which you can do the calculation in your head for Pacific and Central European. And you do need to get a
I
ticket,
can't. That's
but it
way
is,
too complicated for me.
so that would be uh, noon PST and 9 p.m. Central European time, so a little late for the Europeans, but nonetheless, it is a free event, but you do need a ticket. So go
I
ahead
just
and
got my ticket. It's super easy. Just go. What is it? Eventbrite, Alyssa? Sorry.
it's an Eventbrite ticket.
Yeah.
So, and I think we can post the link after this,
And
or
when
just
you do, go register an Eventbrite, and it's going to ask you some questions, and it's also going to ask you, would you like to be contacted by any of the companies that are sponsoring this event? And guess what? NIMSY's sponsoring this event, so go ahead and check that NIMSY box so that you can have a lovely email from Alyssa. Actually, I'm not sure how that's going to look like. How are they divvying out the? I don't know. I have no idea.
we'll we'll figure it out internally. But
I just know
yeah,
because I just registered, and I thought that was funny that there's this button that's like, or not a button, this option is like, would you like to be contacted by these people? And I think I selected NIMSY Insights, so I don't know if you're going to get an email now, Alyssa, that says, oh, Tucker would like to be contacted by you.
yeah, I'll make sure to email you just to make more Peaky Blinders jokes about your hat. So
I'll make sure to wear a different hat tomorrow so that you don't make fun of me in front of everybody. But with that, thank you,
yeah,
Alyssa,
you're the
for coming and doing this with me. I think we've been going about 10 minutes now. Here's the information up on screen. We'll see you there tomorrow. There's going to be a great lineup. Oh, one quick thing, Alyssa. Who are the other speakers? Do you have the speaker list in front of you?
I mean, I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but we are in very good company with Natalie Kelly, Alexia Nassian,
Yeah.
several speakers from outside localization. So a lot of new faces, which is always exciting. And yeah, just check it out. There's going to be many moderated discussions on 2 different tracks.
It's right there. All
Very
right.
cool.
There's the information, guys. And with that, I think I'm going to. I always forget to do this. I have this nice animation. Make sure you're subscribed to NIMSY Insights. I'm going to play us out here, guys. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Have a great week. Stay awesome. Have questions, leave them in the comments. Ciao.
Guys, ciao.